Welcome back. Since Sunday, Egypt's Nile Delta has seen 27,000 factory workers on strike to demand pay rises. But it's not the only time in recent months that mounting civil unrest has exploded onto the streets. Just last month, there were mass protests throughout the country. People were demanding access to clean water. Reports suggest tens of thousands have no access to any water at all. The August 2006 train crash near Cairo that killed over 50 people sparked angry demonstrations about the state of Egypt's rail network. Hundreds have died in recent years in similar seemingly preventable accidents. And these demonstrations have taken place in a climate of growing discontent with rolling protests by government opponents since last year. Well, this latest strike is just one indication that life in Egypt may be getting worse. Unemployment statistics vary, but it's estimated around 10% of the workforce lacks jobs. Opposition figures claim unemployment is twice that, and some say the real problems are long hours and low wages that make day-to-day life a struggle. Approximately 16 to 20% of Egyptians now live in poverty. Well, adding to Egyptians' problems, the rising cost of food. The government is warning that the price of basic foods has risen almost 50% in the past year. Well, joining us again to discuss the current labour unrest in Egypt are our guests. In Cairo, Majid Rida Boutros, Professor of Political Science and a member of the Policies Committee of the ruling National Democratic Party. Also from Cairo, Ghouda Abdel Khaliq, a Professor of Economics at Cairo University. And from London, John Chalcraft, Lecturer in the History and Politics of Imperialism at the London School of Economics. Welcome to you once again. If I could start with Mr. Chalcraft once again. In part one, you were referring to the imposition of the neoliberal policies, but some would argue that these are policies which the Egyptian government welcomed. No one forced it to adopt.
Well, that's not true. In 1981, President Hosni Mubarak said that he wouldn't touch the public sector workers. There would be no layoffs. But in 1989, the standby agreement with the IMF collapsed. In 1991, the international financial institutions offered Egypt a 50% reduction in its foreign debt if it went ahead with the privatization program. And by 1996, that privatization program was underway. Now, what that privatization program envisaged was the redundancy of about 500,000 Egyptian jobs in the public sector. 500,000 jobs with wives and children. That's as many people as live in Birmingham, Glasgow, Sheffield, and those cities combined. So it's a vast number of people that will be dramatically impacted in a negative way by this privatization program because they get laid off, they lose their jobs, they lose their compensation packages, they get transformed to temporary contracts, they don't get sufficient retirement or sickness guarantees or provisions. So this is in many ways an assault on hundreds of thousands of Egyptian workers, and it stems directly from the debt leverage which international financial institutions have over Egypt. And this protest, which is very courageous, by the way, those workers who are struggling to put bread on the table have found the solidarity to protest, is very significant, because you have up to 50,000 workers since December 2006 on the streets, and Egypt has the largest working class in the Arab world.
All right, you made some interesting points there. Sorry to interrupt. If I could bring in Mr. Boutros once again into the discussion. How would the ruling party respond to suggestions that we're hearing that perhaps the government hasn't taken into account things like sequencing, timing when introducing reforms, retraining of workers?
Well, the rehabilitation and restructuring programs that are taking place currently now take into consideration how to change the status, improve the status of employees, increase their wages. And this was one of the articles in the presidential campaign program. The program have been partially fulfilled till now. One major part of it, that's to improve the status of the Egyptian workers. And it's underway nowadays. One problem of this is we have financial restructuring and human resource restructuring as well. So financially, we have a lot of burdens. How to increase the working capital, pay out the debts, And I'm glad that Mr. Gouda did indicate this, because Mr. Gouda was one of the advocates, most advocates of a planned economy. Now I'm glad that he realized that capital economy is the solution for it. Privatization is the solution for it.
No, I don't think he's putting words in my mouth. I would like to retort to that.
Okay, go ahead very briefly.
Hello?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr. Gouda.
I mean, I didn't say that Mr. Butler is putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying the capitalist system is the solution. I think everybody sees very clearly that the capitalist system did not get us anywhere. This labor and social unrest is a very important manifestation of that.
Right.
I think the ruling party is just playing the rule according to the interests of international financial institutions.
Let's broaden the discussion out a minute, gentlemen. Perhaps I'll stay with Gouda. Ruling elites across the Middle East, is it a case of them willing to see the middle classes, the lower classes crushed in the race to join globalization? The problems in Egypt are not particular to Egypt alone, are they?
Well, the ruling elites don't give a damn. They don't really care about the middle class anymore. In fact, all the measures, Mr. Butler said that the president in his presidential platform stressed the improving the lot of the working class. I think these were absolutely false promises, because all the measures taken by the ruling party and the government lead in the opposite direction. They lead to pauperization not only of the working class, but also of the middle class. In fact, the middle class is being crushed very severely thanks to government policy. So I don't think the ruling party has any legitimacy when it talks about economic reform. Economic reform is a false. The economy is in a very bad shape, and there is very mounting social unrest. And the only thing they could think of is to use the security machine in order to clamp down on this. I don't think that can go on any longer.
All right, perhaps Mr. Butros, I'll allow you to have a quick response to that.
I said it earlier that we are in the verge of implementing a comprehensive restructuring program. Now, when you change a country from planned economy to capital economy, when you have very positive indicators, according to the United Nations,
this is strange. Yeah, but who said there are positive indicators? When you have an unemployment rate close to 20% of the labor force, when you have inflation at 20%...
Dr. Gouda, sorry, we'll just let him finish his point.
Are these,
sorry, Dr. Gouda, let Mr. Butros just finish his point. We'll come back to you in a moment. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Butros.
Okay.
Well, the government does not declare those positive indicators. Those positive indicators are published by the IMF, the World Bank, all international financial institutions. And they praise the Egyptian program for restructuring and rehabilitation of the public sector and the privatization program. So this is not something.
I'm going to try and jump in again, gentlemen. I'm going to broaden the discussion out again.
Yeah.
If I could bring Mr. Chalcraft into it once again. Is it, in addition to perhaps all of the things we've been discussing so far, a case of privatization occurring in many parts of the Middle East where poor management is also prevalent, and that leads to corruption? Is that part of the problem?
It's, you know, you have these problems. You have these problems in many parts of the world. You have those problems in Enron and the meltdown of, you know, major financial institutions in the United States. No, the key to this is a very specific program of privatization, which has generated a massive assault on the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of workers in Egypt. I mean, talking about positive indicators when these workers are on $50 to $75 a month, they can't put bread on the table. Basic food commodities have increased in price radically over the last few years. This has been going on since the 1970s. In any case, to talk about positive indicators isn't going to get us to any kind of understanding of what this labor struggle is actually about.
All right, let's go over to Good and try and shift gears and look at some of the other aspects which have been mentioned in the show. Is politics playing a role in this? Of course, there are political groups who would like to see some form of instability in Egypt.
You see that the cabinet that was formed back in 2004 and later had several cabinet posts assigned to so-called businessmen. Now, what these businessmen people have done is part of the problem, because you talked about corruption. I think there is a good deal of that, because there is a very important rule, that is the conflict of interest rule. If you get an agent for an auto company and entrust him with the transport portfolio, what can you expect?
Right.
If you get someone, this is very clear.
All right,
and
I'm
also,
sorry. We are running out of time.
The marriage between capital and government is part of the problem.
All right,
so I don't know.
the
positive economic indicators don't convince me at
all. All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Majid Boutrous from the National Democratic Party, Ghouda Abdel Khaliq from Cairo University, and John Chalcraft from the London School of Economics. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, the viewer, for joining us here too on this edition of Inside Story. For now, it's goodbye.